Who's read the GDPR? Okay, cool, it's pretty long. It's about 88 pages. It's the General Data Protection Regulation. So firstly, let me give you a bit of background. At the moment, we use data privacy in the EU, within the EU, is governed under something called the European Directive 9546/EC, but it was made in 1995, so it's quite old. In 2012, the European Commission decided that actually something new needed to be done. 1995 was a very long time ago, so let's put together the GDPR. Earlier this year, they agreed on what should be in this, which means it took 4 years of talking about it to make this lovely document here. And we're currently in the middle of a 2-year, not in the middle, we're currently going through a 2-year implementation phase of putting this into practice. Earlier this year, there was a, quote, public consultation on the evaluation and review of the ePrivacy Directive. What that means is, earlier this year, they asked us, what do you think of the cookie law? And what do you think of everything else that's in that document about the cookie law? Part of the ePrivacy Directive that includes the cookie law talks a lot about mobile phones. It was made, sorry, it was last touched in 2009. So even that is really quite a long time ago. It talks about telephones being ex-directory. It touches on the Internet of Things in a kind of Robocop kind of way, but it was written a long time ago. So in this review, the EU were asking the world, well, not the world, the other people in the EU, what do you think? Do you think we should consider things like security around instant messaging and WhatsApp, and how should we handle things around Google Analytics? Do you feel that the cookie policy, for example, has been implemented well? Has it been implemented fairly across all countries? Because different countries could take the rules and make them law in their own countries in different ways, so everyone's kind of put their own slant on things. Some people enforce things more than others, and so they're concerned about how fair it's all being. So that's where I come in on it, really. We, last year, I co-founded the Web Guild, which is a not-for-profit organisation that is aimed at helping, initially it was aimed at helping potential clients find the right designer or developer for their project. So vetting web designers and developers, maintaining continued professional development logs, triumphing the work of a freelancer, and you don't have to be in a huge agency to have made something that's really cool and innovative and brilliant. And we started getting members this year, and they said, oh, actually, our members said, oh, will you be like a trade association for us? Will you be our professional body? And we said, well, yeah, happy to be. Legally, we're not. We're a not-for-profit organisation, and legally a trade association is a different kind of being, but we're happy to fulfil that role. And they said, great, please write us a review and give it to the EU about the cookie law. And I was like, oh, okay. So we did. We put together our response to them. One of the things we were interested in, and this is, I know, something they're touching on, is more around third-party cookies. This is one of my clients. It's oilprice.com. It's a very big oil and energy news website. I have no problem with ads. I'm quite happy to receive ads and get the internet for free. But when I'm reading about geopolitical oil gluts in Libya and I get an advert for Peppa Pig World, I just feel stalked. Because that's just, it's normally on Oil Price I get ads for Toys R Us, and it just doesn't sit nicely, does it really? So when we were writing this response, we did a very little survey just to see what the public thought of the cookie law. It was only just over 100 people we asked, but 52.6% said they found cookie messages annoying, 44% didn't take any notice, 1.7% thought they were a good idea, and 1.7% said they think they're really important and actually always read the privacy policy. I think they probably thought they were meant to say that, but that's what they said. So just to compare that to what we're saying in here, none of you think they're really important. None of you think they're a good idea. A few of you, they don't bother you, you just ignore them, but the vast majority, yeah, they think they're annoying. And I think the feedback from the EU so far is that they are reviewing it, and they appreciate they need to target it more about third-party cookies, because that's the bit that people feel stalked at. That's the bit where you feel like it's an invasion of privacy, because why are you seeing that when you're on this completely separate website? So let me go back to this. Okay, so back to our timeline. So that's a bit about why the Guild is involved in this whole reading the EU document stuff. The GDPR will apply from the 25th of May 2018. So in 2018, you kind of might need to know what's in here if you're making websites. Something important to know is that whereas if you see the word directive, it means that every one of the 28 member states in the EU needs to make a law about it, and then the people need to adhere to that country's law, whereas this will be a regulation, and a regulation means it comes from the top down, it is law already. So this stands, it's not going to be a country's version of this that stands. The slight caveat of that is that it took 4 years to decide what should go in here, and the only way they agreed on it in the end was to put some caveats in, where they say, this is the law, unless you don't want it to quite be the law, and then you can tweak it within these limits. There's about 30 different places, I think, in here where they say that actually a country can make their own deviation on it if they want. For example, consent. If a child is 16 or over, you have to ask them for consent rather than their parents. But they say, oh, but if you'd rather make that 13 in your country, then you can. So there are caveats in there, but on the whole, it means the whole of the EU should abide by the same rule book. But then that happens. So, I've been talking up until now intentionally about in the EU and all of that. But where does that leave us? Where does Brexit leave us? Well, we might adopt GDPR anyway. We might have to adopt it to be part of the single market or the digital single market, or who knows, we might have to adopt it to carry on working relations across Europe. We might create our own very similar regulations because, let's face it, the government are going to have a lot to do. They might as well copy and paste, file save as, and then they've kind of got a rule book already. Or we might create something completely different. I kind of doubt we'll make something completely different because that's taken 4 years of thought. So we're probably going to take some bits from it and use quite a lot of it. The one thing that is very important though is whatever the UK does, if you're dealing with users in the EU, you still need to abide by the GDPR. So if you think you've got people from Germany or France or anywhere in the EU coming to your website, then for them you need to handle their data in the ways laid out in the GDPR. This is wordy. This is just because I'll put this online afterwards and you can get it if you want it. But I just wanted to, ideally today, at the end of this evening, I might have hopefully told you a few little pointers that you can bear in mind in the course of your everyday work. Can I have a show of hands actually first? Who here is a designer? Cool. Who's a developer? Cool. And have we got like architects? No, but so cool. Oh, content writers. Yeah. Marketers? Yeah, cool. So hopefully there's a bit of stuff in this for everyone that you've got to consider. They're really quite specific in the GDPR about how they classify things, and they give a lot of information about what they class as personal data. Oh, I've got a laser. Yeah. Ooh, I didn't think I'd need it, but online identifier, read IP address. So, whereas you might kind of have thought in the past, well, it's not someone's bank account details, so, you know, it's not that sensitive. They are really going to town on what counts as personal data now. Name, identification number, location data, and online identifier, or factors around physical, physiological, genetic, mental, economic, cultural, or social identity of that natural person. They then also got a list of special categories, that they don't contradict themselves, but they say, oh, you need to make sure you're very careful with all this stuff, like super, super careful. But oh my goodness, do you need to be careful with this stuff? Like this is on acid, super careful. Racial or ethnic origin, political opinions, religious or philosophical beliefs, genetic data, biometric data, health data, data concerning a natural person's sex life or sexual orientation, and trade union membership. They're aware now that people are putting so much information online, and so they need to be quite broad, but also they need to cover everything that people might be collecting about people. The GDPR does not cover processing of personal data when it's an issue of national security. So that's partly why I think the UK might adopt something similar, or other people might adopt, you know, it's kind of, because governments have that get-out clause that they can still do what they want with stuff, that's why it's probably an okay rule book for lots of people to go by. Know your rights. So there are lots of rights. Excuse me. The GDPR is all about protecting people's rights. And I think we need to know what the rights are so that when we are making websites or apps, we can make sure we're abiding by what we need to cover. The first one is the right to be informed. So the next time you make any kind of sign-up page, you need to put so much stuff on it, apparently, according to the GDPR. You need to tell people what you're collecting, they might already know that through the form, how you're storing it, what you're going to do with it, who they should contact if they want to complain, how they could take it back, how they could complain. Just lots and lots of information about, the right of access. So they need to be able to get whatever information you've got about them very quickly and easily. The guidelines, this happens a lot through this list. If someone asks you for the information you've got about them, you need to give it to them within a month. Unless there are exceptional circumstances, then it can be 2 to 3 months. So on every seemingly fixed rule, there's then like a loophole that gives you a bit more space. Unless they're being really annoying and they're asking for stuff a lot of times that it's really just over-the-top pedanticness on their part, and then you can refuse to give it. But if you refuse to give it, you have to give them a reason as to why you refuse to give it and tell them who they can complain to. So you can get around it, but there's also, it has to be free. And that's very important, that all the information about what you're doing with the information, that needs to be easily accessible and free as well. So when they, right of access, when they want to get your information, when they want to get their information, that has to be free. I think Data Protection Act lets you charge a £10 admin charge. That's out the window now. Unless there's something really tricky about it and you can put in a small admin feature, typically it has to be free. And what they're aiming for is that you just let them get it themselves online. The right to rectification. So if they want to update their details, you let them update their details. Ideally, you just let them do it online. And again, within a month, obviously if it was online it would be right away, but within a month or 2 to 3 months if there's a reason. And if you've given that data to anyone else, so if you can think of any systems you work on at the moment where you take someone's data and you pass it to any other systems, you need to try and ensure that you could update those other systems as well if someone changed their data that they had with you. The right to erasure. This one needs a little respect. I'm begged to say that. Also known as the right to be forgotten, but they do actually call it erasure in the GDPR. People have a right to be forgotten. Ends up they don't completely. If it is something that you think is of, if you can argue your case that it's of the benefit to mankind, that you keep it. So if it's medical research and you need those stats and figures because it's going to really help society, then you can argue the fact that you can't erase them completely. The right to restrict processing. This one's a little odd because it sort of piggybacks with another one that's coming up. But they could ask you to stop processing their data. Imagine someone wants to use your service, but they don't want everything that's involved around that and all the processing you might do with it. And processing, I was asked when I demoed this, what does processing mean? Well, I take it to be stats and reports for your client, but also you're processing someone's data if you're profiling them for a newsletter or for a mailing list. And there's a lot in there about profiling. So I think something personally I know we've worked on a lot. Even one of the first Facebook apps I worked on was a carbon calculator, right? And then you always get clients who want the calculator for what brand washing machine someone should have, or the calculator that works out how many hours of TV you spend watching a week. All of that stuff is profiling, and all of that stuff is processing data. The right to data portability. So this is that someone should be able to, ideally, log into your website and press a button, and all of their data will go to their new provider of whoever's service they're moving to. It's kind of aimed at energy companies, but also I think like mobile phone people. As a minimum, they're aiming for people being able to log into a website and download a CSV file of their data so they could take it somewhere else. So if you can give people the access to do that when you build something, then you've got that covered. The right to object. So this just means you have to very, very clearly tell someone who they can object to, who they can complain to, and how they can just stop and get everything back, or get everything back, just delete everything, which is with the erasure and right to be forgotten. It says you need to make that as clear as the consent process, which for me is, if you imagine when you're designing your site and you make all these big calls to action to sign up, you rarely put as much effort into the link to deactivate your account, or to cancel your account, delete your account. So they're saying you need to make it as easy as. So you could argue, well, it's still just one click, or it's still just this many clicks down, because no one's going to have a huge big homepage that says join, leave. But think about that when you're planning stuff. Rights in relation to automated decision making and profiling. This is a computer says no kind of situation. If someone is doing something on your website that is really, really important, and it's up to you to decide if it's life-changing important, you need to give them the option to have human intervention. So if they're entering into a contract with you, you can automate it, that's fine. But if there's something that is legally going to affect their lives by them using your service, that you have to let them pick up the phone and speak to someone if they want to, rather than it just be based on a system that's making decisions based on an algorithm. Right. So consent. Silence. This is from the Information Commissioner's Office, and I think this is something that, on a day-to-day basis, every time you make a register form, every time you make a sign-up form, this is something to be thinking of going forward. Silence, pre-ticked boxes, or inactivity does not constitute consent. So that third parties, we will sell your details to third parties box, always needs to be unticked going forwards. I'm sure you all do anyway, but just in case. And it shall be as easy to withdraw as give consent. So that's what I was saying about as easy to close down as it is to open up. Consent or explicit consent for the special categories, so that's how you need to give consent, but you really need to give consent if it's sensitive stuff. Needs to be verifiable, so you need to store a record of the fact that you gained consent, which in itself means that you're storing more data about people, so you've got to be clever with how you store it. And then this one, if you've already been given consent, you don't need to re-ask for it, as long as when you asked for it, it was in line with these rules. And when I demoed this at work, this is where I got heckled. I got heckled by my husband. That's a whole big pile of stupid. What if 10 years ago someone didn't have to tick a box? Now it's so, how do you then re-get their consent? You send out an email saying, oh, in 2018 the rules are going to change, so please can you come back to our website and just fill in this form? And 95% of your users won't bother to do that. So does that mean you're supposed to delete their data? And the words going around the office were, did Europe really want to go back to a dark ages where they didn't have any user account information because they had to delete it all because most people didn't bother to come back and re-say it was okay? So that is a topic that the Web Guild I'm actually going to look more into. We're going to speak to solicitors about that and try and get their understanding on it and get some further clarification on just what you can do, because you will get people who won't bother to come back and re-consent, but they will kick off if you just delete everything once they realise it's too late. So keep an eye on the Web Guild blog for we're going to try and clarify that a bit more. Data protection by design and default. This is the bit that I find the most interesting in all this, because this is the bit I find most applicable to my work every day when I'm planning systems. Data minimization. If you don't need it, don't ask for it. And I know it's so tempting. Well, when you're asking people, I always try and get clients to keep what they're asking for us to a minimum anyway, because no one wants to fill in a long form. You're more likely to fill in a form if it's just asking the essentials. But I know when you're programming something, it's just so tempting. You think, well, I could just store that. I might as well store that. It might come in handy one day. And actually, then one day I could show them this cool thing that last 3 weeks ago on Tuesday, they did this and they looked at this. And I love all of that, but you've got to be wary of data minimization. And if you don't need it, try and resist the temptation to store it. Right. Pseudonymization. Is that how you say it? Anyone know? Yeah? I think so. I've been practicing that word. I've lost it now. So basically, this is where you store information about people, but you store it separately, and to some extent you might encrypt a key or something that tallies or handshakes one bit to another bit. So if someone got hold of all your data, it wouldn't mean anything to them. because they've got a list of names and they've got a list of date of births, but they don't know which date of birth goes with which name. Your system knows, it can tally it up, but everything else is stored quite separately. So it's not anonymous, so it is still subject to the GDPR, but the GDPR welcomes that as a way of storing data, which I do think is going to be more work for everyone, the first couple of times you do it especially, but it's quite a good idea when you think about it really. They're in the GDPR, it's very, so many different things count as a data breach. I think in the US, a data breach is very much about if financial, like credit card information gets out, or if someone could actually lose money, that's a data breach. The GDPR is like, if someone in a hospital opens a file they shouldn't look at by accident and then closes it again, that's a data breach. You know, anything is a data breach. Keep it anonymous if possible. So that's the overall thing. If you can keep it anonymous, collect what you want, store what you want, harvest it however, and report on it, cross-reference it, or whatever, how you want. But if it's anonymous, then it doesn't affect the GDPR, so it doesn't matter. You can do what you want with it. Penalties. So when I practiced this talk, it was far too long. I had all sorts of stuff in here about data breaches and how people need data controllers more going forward and everything, but I cut all that out. The main point though is that if you don't have a cookie message, someone might report you to the ICO and you might get a slap on the wrist, but it's all a bit woolly, and I don't expect anyone ever has. I don't know, probably Google it and they have. But they do claim, that gets a slide, because it's quite a big number, they do claim throughout the GDPR that you could get a 20 million euro fine in some places for not doing some of the things that are in it. 10 million euros is also banded around for different things, or up to 4% of the total worldwide annual turnover of your preceding financial year, whichever is higher. It is on a sliding scale when you read the small print, it's all small print, but when you read more into it, it is on a sliding scale, so if you're a small company, you're not going to get hit with a fine like that. But they are trying to be specific, and they are trying to back up what they're saying by saying there will be penalties, there will be fines in place for stuff. So then, I thought it was quite interesting, at the very, very beginning of the document, they say, the right to the protection of personal data is not an absolute right. It must be considered in relation to its function in society and be balanced against other fundamental rights in accordance with the principle of proportionality. Just above that as well, they talk about how data needs to be used for the benefit of mankind. And personally, I love how much we can do with data now. I love how we can crunch numbers and find out all sorts of interesting stats. But I just think we do need to be careful about that power and what we do with it. I don't know if anyone saw that the director of the FBI, James Comey, I'm not sure how you say his name, I think earlier in the year he said how he puts tape over his webcam because you never know who's watching you, and got slammed a little bit because some people were like, that's awful, the FBI are watching us, and then other people were like, well, if the FBI is watching us and you're putting tape over your camera, then you're like stopping them, and that's preventing stuff. So he couldn't win with that comment. So just last week he was asked about it again, do you still cover your webcam? And he said yes. He referred to it as security hygiene. Everyone needs to be careful of it. And he said people ought to take responsibility for their own safety and security. So then that made me think how last week a friend on Facebook posted how they just pre-ordered their Amazon Echo, which will always be listening. That is the plug socket in my bedroom, and that is the plug for the Samsung Smart TV that isn't left plugged in overnight because it might listen to you. Sorry, had an awkward moment earlier on talking outside. But not the Samsung TV department, so the Samsung Internet is different. And that's my iPhone with Facebook on it, because last week someone told me that the Facebook app always listens to you as well. And they actually said it will show you ads according to brands it hears you talking about. I don't know if that's true, but that's quite scary stuff. And when I did a demo of this talk at work, our designer did freak out a little bit by how much she probably talks about in front of all of these devices. So, and part of the reason you've got to be careful of your security hygiene is because even when people, it's not just that companies might be wanting to spy on you to do naughty things, they might just genuinely make accidents, because everyone, it's all technology, there could be bugs, and so this is from 2015, but it got tweeted last week. Google blurred out the face of a camera, trying to be all like security conscious and stuff. So, you know, even the biggest companies in the world can still get privacy stuff wrong. So, for your own sake, just be careful of what you put out there. So I guess, yeah, I just think that we all need to play our part in everything we do with regards to helping know where the line is and helping people consider their security and their privacy going forward. Programmers and developers need to consider data minimization, pseudonymization, and keeping things anonymous where they possibly can. If you're in marketing, be creative, be imaginative, but don't just rely on remarketing, because that's when people feel stalked, and just try and use technology in really exciting new ways. If you're the CEO of a big international company, keep pushing things to the limit. I understand that you want to be better than your competitors, you want to be moving forward, you want to be exciting with your brand, but you need to remember where the line is and try and stay the right side of it. And if you work in government, again, try and remember the line of where people's rights and own personal privacies might be. And I'm very aware that the people who don't remember where the line is will be maybe the most super rich and powerful, but when they're on their like super comfy mattresses and expensive pillows, will they sleep as well at night? So you be the judge. Because hopefully, if we just all play our part and remember where the line is, we won't need to resort to drastic measures. So I've got some further reading at the end, if anyone's interested in any more details that I'll put up on the web guild, and thank you, that's me.